Hey guys, and welcome back to the HobbyDude 007 channel and the Model Car Cup Series. For several weeks now, I have been working on build sheets for about 3 different stock cars, as well as one that's already under construction, wrapping up some of that stuff. But while I was thinking about this and doing some planning, I started talking to my son-in-law about something that I think he's excited about, and I want to share it with you because I want your opinion and kind of a little survey that we'll be able to gauge by the comments. So let's talk about it. In addition to being a model car enthusiast, most of you know that my passion is race cars, specifically Winston Cup era race cars, NASCAR. So I wanted to share something with you with my Daytona here to give you an idea of where I'm going and a few questions I have for you guys. First of all, I like as much detail as I possibly can. There's things on this car that you cannot see, but it's there. And I've been talking to my son-in-law about 3D printing, so we may be doing this, but I want to see what kind of interest there is in the community, because when I started this channel, it was to share information and to cover shows, to share with guys that don't have shows in their area, things like that. But I thought, you know, I scratch build a lot of stuff that is not available for the older stock cars, as well as some of the new ones. And our buddy Jim Rogers with Salvino JR Models has an outstanding line of 3D printed stuff that he does for some of the 80s and the modern cars as well. But I want to go back a little further than that, and I want to share a few things with you that I had made my build sheets, and I had put in the note areas of what needed to be scratch built. And I thought, well, if I'm going to scratch build them, let's see if we can get these things 3D printed and we can share them with folks. One of the things that is very difficult to see, and we're going to look at some stills in a few minutes of how I scratch build the other ones, but I want to see if maybe if there's an interest, make these available. Over in the passenger side, you can barely, I don't know if I can get the light to it, but the electronics boxes are right down here. And I don't know if you can see the pointer, and yeah, there's just no light. I'll show you that with the body off here in a minute. One of the things that I always like is accurate. All right, you notice the deck lid. Well, let me get around here. Underneath the deck lid, the ribbing, and I want to make that as accurate as possible. And I want to start doing some of this stuff. The other thing, let me take this hood off a minute, is the oil tank for this era car from the late 60s in the Mopar, and I'll show you where they are on the Ford here in a little bit too. But you see under the fender right here, and right behind this fender, there's your oil tank sitting right there. And the battery is actually mounted right below it. And again, I'll show you some pictures of that in a minute in the real car. But even though it's barely visible, which you can see, I don't know if I can get the light. There we go. Up in here where you can see that oil tank. And you notice how it's conformed, if I can get it the right angle here. It's conformed, yeah, it's conformed to the shape of the body. And again, and you'll see that closer in the stills. But this is what I have in mind, guys. I want to, we've got a lot of 3D printers out there that do an outstanding job, and I don't know of too many 3D printing companies that I have not utilized. Iceman, I have been picking up a lot of stuff from Matthew at Model Car Videos, which, let me tell you, first-rate stuff. Miguel at HobbyWerks, that's my go-to guy for a long time. Just absolutely awesome stuff. But there are some things on here that I still haven't shown you, but I'm going to show you how I scratch build them. But if I'm going to, in lieu of showing you how to scratch build them, if I can just, if there's a big enough interest, I'll start getting them printed up and maybe make them available. As well as Another little thing we'll touch on a little here in a few minutes. All right, let me get some slides queued up, and I'll do a little voiceover and show you what I have in mind on making. I have 4 different oil/sump tanks on the drawing board right now, figuring up dimensions for my son-in-law, and I want to focus on the one we just looked at on the Daytona. This picture you see in the upper right-hand corner under the fender there, this is Richard Petty's 1972 Dodge Charger, and you see it located there, and you see how some of the plumbing is run. And this is a picture of the Superbird, and you see it a little bit darker, but you can see it tucked right up underneath there. In my research, I discovered this configuration was run in most of the Mopars and a few of the Chevrolets in the, I think, mid-68, as far back as I could find one, all the way through 1973. And here you see a picture of one of the cars without the body on it, and you see the location there, and you see the little notch out in the bottom where the battery is. And here's a look at it with one of the Mopar Fleet Line commercial batteries up underneath it there. And another picture from one of the old 1971 Plymouths, and you see it located there. And just for the fun of it, you see here the Petty car that was wrecked, the Roadrunner that was flipped over at Darlington a few times, and you see what's left of the oil tank right behind the tire there. And here was, I think this was the second scratch-built one that I did to put in that Daytona. This is before the body went on it. And you see its location and the notch underneath it for where the battery goes. And I've looked at it from up above. But this is one I want to do, and if I've got to do 3 of these for different projects upcoming, and I thought it might be a good time to go ahead and 3D print them, or I can just knock them out. This is actually not hard to make. And how you see where it's notched out in the firewall area there. Well, this is one of the Salvino 71 Plymouths, and you see how the bulkhead comes right up to the body, no problem. Well, on the driver's side, you just need to notch that, and I will probably be showing you how far in you need to notch that for that to sit in there. And you see the roll bars on the side there, and it does clear everything, and it will be sitting right there. And in 1974, you notice the oil tank has been moved. This is the trunk of a 74 Petty Charger. And you see the new location and the configuration of that tank. This is one of those 4 I was mentioning that I have in the works. And here you see this is the David Pearson 1969 and 70 oil tank in the Holman Moody cars. And you notice it's behind the driver's seat, and in the forefront there is the cooling fan for the rear end cooler. But you see the oil tank on behind the driver's seat, as I said, on the other side there. Next up, I want to do something that, a lot of folks think that these cars started running disc brakes back in the 60s, early 70s. Actually, they did not. When many of us met with Jim Rogers at Petty Enterprises a month or so back, one of the questions I had for Dale Inman was, what year did you switch to disc brakes? And he was thinking it was late 75 or 76, somewhere in there. And as you see, this is the 72 Plymouth, and you notice they still were running drum brakes then. And the drum brakes, I love these drum brakes because there's so much more detail that you can add to a car with drum brakes than you can with disc brakes. And here's one of Stock Car Magazine pictures of the drum, and I couldn't find one that I liked, so I built up some stock plastic tube, and so I made my own brake drums, and then turned them down and then cast a mess of them. The problem with these is they're not hollow, and I wanted them hollow. And this is after primer is on it. And you see, I think they turned out pretty good. But I'm wanting to do some 3D printing on these too. That way they'll be hollow. And then here they are finished. These were for the, pretty sure these were the ones that were on the back. But very, very cool. And as I mentioned, when it comes to detailing, I love drum brakes. Now you see here, this is the front of one of Cotton Owens' cars. And you notice all the detail there. Now this one's got the front hub with the lugs studs on it. I like to display mine with that hub off, so you can see all the springs and the wheel cylinder and all that stuff. Here's one of the Petty Enterprise. And you notice the Bendix brakes, the pads, the way they're designed. And so I would, using sheet plastic and plastic tube, I would scratch build these. Now, to get enough to do a complete car, and if you remember on my Daytona, I left the brake drums off the front, so you could see the left and right front brake assembly. But I had to make like 6 or 7 of these things to get 4 that were right. And I'm thinking if I can get these dialed in on a 3D printer, that would be so much easier. And you notice the notches in the brake pads there too. But I think I love doing this stuff, guys. And then the wheel cylinders and all that stuff. And here you see the backing plate. And we'll make these individual pieces. I think they look better when they're individual pieces. And you see the wheel cylinder, that's a piece of aluminum tubing. And I just made the springs myself. And you see the entire assembly here on the car. And I usually display it with a drum close by it. But, and on each of these things, guys, as we're going through, if this is something, and not everybody likes this kind of detail, it's cool to me. But if this is not something you're interested in, no big deal, no big deal. Just let me know in the comments. The oil tanks, same thing. Any of this stuff, just let me know what you're interested in. Next up is the double plenum intake. Originally, and this is way back before Salvino's, this was years ago, I made a little template up using the block and heads from the 69 Daytona 426 Hemi in 25th scale to design these as far as the sizes go. And then I built it up from sheet plastic, as you see here. Sanded and rounded everything off. I used Aber weld, the smallest weld beads across there, and the Protec nut and bolt heads that you saw me show in one of the last videos, stash hauls. And here it is primered. And I had a few of these resin cast. Of course, when you're resin casting, you got to make a few molds because they do wear out. But 3D printing, I think this will be really, really cool. And here it is with a carb on it, finished up and painted and all of that stuff. So I had a lot of fun with this. A lot of fun with this. Moving on to electronics. This is the same one. If you look in the Petty 72 Dodge Charger, which is this is what this is a picture of, or you look in several of the other Mopars, this is what you see. The electronics panel, and this one is, as you see, it's the same, pretty much the exact same panel. This was in the 70 Dodge Daytona that is at the International Motorsports Hall of Fame in the number 71 Bobby Isaac Dodge Daytona. And to make this, the way I had been doing it was scribing through these blocks of plastic and putting these brass fins in there, and I've made several of these over time, and then putting that together. Now, this is 6 individual pieces, and I like doing it this way because if I had this printed or made into one piece, it's harder to paint, and it doesn't look quite as realistic because it's just one piece that's painted. This way it's easier to paint, and you have individual parts that are put on that panel. I think it looks really good. And then here is your, on the 200-mile-an-hour car, here's where it was located on the floor. Now for the Holman and Moody cars, the electronics were located in the glove box, which I think is very cool. I've seen a couple of different configurations of these and different color electronics that are in them, and I think the glove box was kind of cool though, actually. And here's my 69 Pearson Talladega, and you see I've got the glove box open, and you can see the electronics up in there. Also, I would like to do a modern, this is what's in my Superflow Lumina. This is also a six individual piece item, and it is the electronic ignition panels that were mounted in that car. And I thought this would be cool to do as a set, just as the other one would be a set that would have all of these electronics. You could paint them individually, and then it would have the marks where the wiring needs to be, if you wanted to do the wiring, or just paint them up and put them on there, however you want to do it. And again, guys, if this is something you're interested in, please make sure you comment. Next up is something that I did a video on and showed something, and I'll share that with you again real quick. This is the petty cars in the 70s in the Charger. You notice the configuration of the roll bar with the X kind of pattern in it. And you get a look here from the inside of how that looks. Well, if you remember in one of those videos, I did go back and I took one of the Salvino kits. This is for my Buddy Baker Charger, and the white number 11. You see that I went back in and redid the roll bars and did them to that configuration. I think it's really cool. And again, if you want it accurate, I'm thinking about having these printed as a replacement or a separate piece. And here's a look at it from the side, or kind of a profile angle, but cool. Another thing I would like to do is some of the oil coolers. This particular oil cooler and remote oil filter is from the 1981 Daytona 500 winning car, and this is the actual car. You notice how it is plumbed on the top and bottom, and again the remote oil filter there. And I've got some other pictures of different angles that I'll share with you on that a little later too. And this is the oil cooler that was in the 72 Plymouth Roadrunner. And if you notice the plumbing on it, and note that cage kind of around it. If a tire shredded and started coming apart, you know how those things just fly everywhere. Well, that was kind of a little bit of protection for that, so it didn't tear up the lines or the cooler. But a different look to that oil cooler. Something else I'd like to do is go ahead and accurately do a rear end cooling fan and pump here, as you see. And I have scratch built these, and I have modified the one that comes. This was the one that was in the Woodward garage, the 200-mile-an-hour Daytona we were just looking at. And here you see the one I built for the Daytona, and you see the piece of screen that's in there. I want to be able to have that where that will be available as well. And here it is in the car. Another thing that I would like to look at, and I don't know if I'll do this because not everybody opens the trunk of the cars, but if you do, I'm thinking about trying to do an a fuel cell with some of the fittings and lines that will come out of that. as well as if you are going to open the trunk on a Daytona or a Superbird, do a little research on the support posts for the wings. And you see here, there's the supports for the wing. These are the scratch-built ones I made. And you see them in the car there. And the other side. Another thing I'm trying to look at is some of the 60s, 70s, and into the 80s seats. A lot of teams, a lot of drivers had their own thing that they really liked, so I'm not really sure how that's going to go yet, but that is something I want to take a close look at. Fuel inlets and overflow spouts from a variety of different eras I want to look at, and that way we have something that can be accurate for all of it. Another one of the sump tank type, this is in the trunk of the 81 Daytona winner, and if you remember the video I did on this car, you'll be able to see much more pictures than I'm showing here, and then the way some of the plumbing and all that stuff went in that car. And this gives you some of the lines as well. But I do want to do more of these tanks like this that don't have all the molded on stuff that comes in them. I showed you earlier on the Daytona the ribbing up underneath the trunk. Well, this is one of the Charger Daytona trunks underneath. And here's mine. And what I thought is, if we can just make that ribbing available to you, you can glue that up underneath the deck lid, or I also considered the possibility of just doing an entire trunk with it already on it. I don't know which one will be easier, or I just don't know yet. This is all in planning stages right now, guys. And by the way, none of this stuff is probably going to be something that's available until probably the fall. I really don't know yet. I'll be getting Matt some stuff here shortly. And of course, there's that Daytona trunk. This one is the scratch built area of the Lumina that I did based on a Lumina trunk. And then there it is painted. That's what was in my Superflow car. Now, going back to the some of the Salvino kits, if you're going to open the trunk, you want to make sure that that's all accurate under there. This is the Oldsmobile, and you see the 442, and you see the trunk ribbing up underneath that. We'll be trying to replicate that. And guys, all this 3D stuff is brand new to me, and I don't know the feasibility. I may have to knock some out, scratch build it, and then let Matthew look at it. But we'll take a look. We'll take a look. By the way, when I say Matthew, I'm not talking about our buddy Matt Inman, my son-in-law Matt. Here's the mid 70s and late 70s Monte Carlo ribbing. Right now, I'm thinking if we can just do the ribbing that you can just glue right into after you cut out the trunk, that would be great. But I'm not ruling out just doing an entire replacement trunk either. Here is a Thunderbird. I love doing this kind of research too, guys. And the 81 Daytona 500 winner, there is the ribbing that's up underneath that one. These next two, you'll notice, are very, very similar. Here is your 71 Plymouth. So, if you'll notice the configuration, and this one is the 71 Dodge Charger. It's almost identical. There's a few on the sides, and at the top, there's a few differences there, but it's not too far off. May be able to get away with that one on both of them because they're really, really close. Something else I'm considering is doing some stock car engine sets, just engines. Now, this will be a little bit further down the road. I want to do some other things first. There are a lot of engines available, but there's not a lot of stock car engines available. So this is something I want to look into, is just beyond this Hemi, some of the 80s and maybe 70s, a little more accurate stuff. Another thing is headers and pipes. Now, these are all scratch built. And instead of, you can see the heat stains and where I've had to bend them and heat them and all that stuff. This would be so much easier if we had them printable. A few other little doodads would be like vents and breathers for different things like the oil tanks, which is what these are for. You see, this is in the trunk of my Superflow car, how this goes back into the body and over to the oil tank. And every team does something a little bit different. I'd also probably like to do, there's a lot of Ford 9-inch rear ends out there that are really good, so I probably won't do a rear end, but I would like to do a multi-piece cooling pump that you see there on the front of the pumpkin there. Is maybe, I've got the aluminum spring buckets there, but maybe a set of 3D printed for that as well. And guys, beyond this, there are so many other things. The breathers from the 68 through 76 Mopars, I really want to do that, or look at that anyway. But there's other things stock car wise, and please put down there something you'd like to see. I'll look it up and see if of the feasibility, and I know I'm forgetting something. But something else I'd like to do is, this truck was always something I love. This is a late 60s, I think late 67 or 68 through 1974. Petty Enterprises used these Dodge L1000 with the sleeper trucks. And you see Dale and Richard walking there. And here it is in 74. But I would like, if I can get the dimensions on this, I would like to be able to print that cab. The box and the other stuff are easily scratch built, but I think it would be really cool if we could do this. At one time there was an Australian resin caster that did these. I wish I'd have bought one back then. I did not, and I wish I'd have got a couple of them, but I'm thinking about seeing what we can do about 3D printing these things. That's it for the slides right now, guys, so stick around. I'll be right back. A couple other things I want to show you real quick. With that body off, you can see where I've notched where this bulkhead is, notched that out. And this is the rear end cooler that comes in the Salvino kits, and it is spot on as far as the shape and configuration. I'm thinking about redoing it, upgrading it just a little bit, so you'll have a place for the plumbing, how that goes in there. But I mean, look at that. Jim did an outstanding job on that. Well, I'm just not getting the light right at all, guys. Sorry about that. Anyway, I'm thinking about making it just a touch bigger and having the locations, or trying. And again, guys, this is all brand new to me. I know how I want it, how I see it in my head, and maybe have this little open area here where the screen is there, to where we can put a real piece of screen in there that would probably include with it. Anyway, the other thing that I want to upgrade is that 80s. This is from the Monogram kit, and you see the mold line there, and there should be a screen piece here. There's the motor. It'll eliminate this mold line around it too. And other than just looking like a pyramid that sits behind the seat, make this where it's a little more presentable, a little more accurate. And of course, as I was saying when we were looking at that picture of that tank in the back of the petty car, this has some stuff molded onto it that probably definitely needs to be replaced, so you can add your own plumbing and may even put the indicators as to where that plumbing may need to be. But definitely want to upgrade that as well. Now, the other thing besides 3D printing is, you may remember a number of videos back, my buddy Rob Meadows gifted me a, not 3D, a Photo-etch set from Micromark. And Amanda has been looking for something. She's fascinated with Photo-etch. I don't know why, but she's been looking up Photo-etch, photo-etching, the Micromark stuff, and just photo-etching in general. And she's taken the bull by the horns on this thing, so I'm kind of excited about that. But what I thought would be cool is to make a set, and if you see the way the screen is in the Roadrunner. Now, by the way, Model Car Garage does an outstanding set for the Salvino Dodge Chargers. But as you see here, I think this would look really good if it had some Photo-etch in it as well. So we're going to be looking at this, and honestly, guys, I have no clue if this is something we're going to be able to do or not, or if it's going to be more over my head than I anticipate. Because I've got to admit, even after I got it, I read up on it a little bit, and I'm a little intimidated. But like I said, Amanda seems to be, well, this is not going to be so bad. Well, we'll see. Getting it scaled and all that other stuff. But I thought a replacement Photo-etch piece in here, as well as this piece that goes underneath. You see the screen there as well. I thought that would be kind of cool. So this is something we're going to attempt. No promises, guys, because we may be, with all of this, I may be biting off more than I can chew. But if I'm going to scratch build some of this stuff, if it's possible to make it available to you, I really, really, really want to do it. I think that is it for right now, guys. So we're going to be looking at photo etching a little bit, just that little piece or two pieces as a set, just kind of to see, and then we'll go from there. And the 3D printing stuff, this stuff is going to, as it's made, will be done little bit at a time. I'm thinking about doing maybe the ribbing for one of the trunk lids first, the oil tank for the late 60s, through 73 that goes under the fender there. I think we're going to start with those two first, and then we're going to try to tackle maybe the electronics panel for the Mopars. We're just going to have to see. But again, this is not something that's going to be out immediately. It's going to take a little time. But say a prayer. I'm a little intimidated by all this stuff, but you know what? Hey, everybody has to start somewhere, so we're going to see what happens. Well, that's it, guys. Let me know, please, if this is something that you guys are even interested in. I have no problem scratch building it and making it for myself, but if it's something you guys have an interest in, I truly would like to make it available, but being retired, it's not something I need to do to make money or anything like that. But please let me know, because I'd love to share it if you would. All right, guys, that's it. God bless. Have an awesome weekend. I'll see you in the next video. Look forward to your comments. Thanks, guys.